So thank you, Chagai, and we'll move right away to Omri. Omri Elmaleh is a PhD student at our university. He's writing his dissertation under the supervision of Professor Anan Ryan and Professor, myself, yes. The topic of his thesis is from the land of the cedar to the Parana river, the hybrid identity of the Lebanese Muslim in the Triple Frontier, Argentina, Brazil, Uruguay. Omri, the floor is yours.
So before we start, just to let you know something, the title has been changed a bit, so this is the most updated one. So we start. On March 20th, 1983, the cornerstone of the first mosque and Muslim school compound between Brazil, Argentina, and Paraguay was laid. The very decision to build the mosque could be considered as the starting point of the Muslim Lebanese organized community in the region. However, instead of creating unity, it triggered eternal division, since when the time came to choose the name for the new mosque, ancient and modern disputes among the Shia and the Sunni were rekindled, which in turn led to the creation of parallel religious cultural institutions. The controversial construction of the mosque was one of many reflections of the Lebanese interreligious tensions that were exported to the Triple Frontier during the Second Lebanese Civil War between 1975 and 1989. Nevertheless, I want to argue that this Sunni-Shiite split among the leadership of the organized community was not necessarily shared by the rank and file and did not necessarily reflect the daily practices of most members of the community. In this presentation, I will pause on the origins of the separatist discourse of the communal leadership, which eventually, as I said, had little success in mobilizing the masses. A little background: the Triple Frontier was a pull factor for many immigrants during the last century due to geopolitical and socio-economic alliance between Brazil and Paraguay. One of its many manifestations was the creation of the Lebanese Muslim community, currently estimated at around 15,000 to 20,000 immigrants and their descendants. To situate ourselves geographically, we are talking about the confluence of the Parana River with the Iguazu River, with a cosmopolitan population of about 800,000 people from more than 70 different nationalities. The Triple Frontier is made of 3 cities linked by bridges, as you see right over here. Puerto Iguazu in Argentina, Ciudad Presidente Stroessner, today known as Ciudad del Este, the city of the East, in the Paraguayan side, and on the Brazilian side sits Foz de Iguazu. Since 1965, Ciudad del Este and Foz de Iguazu have been linked by the Amistad, the friendship bridge, making Foz de Iguazu Ciudad del Este axis as the main economic engine of the Triple Frontier. In 1981, 31 years after the arrival of the first Lebanese Muslim in the Triple Frontier, the community numbered more than 1,000 members, and a mosque was yet nowhere to be found. For many years, Lebanese in the Triple Frontier used to pray in large halls or rooms which were allocated for this purpose. Moreover, according to the testimonies of several interviewees, Sunnis and Shiites used to pray together in these improvised localities. 2 years later, these religious practices came to be no longer confined to the private sphere, but rather gained publicity with the announcement of the construction of the first mosque and Muslim school compound. About 300 members gathered to mark this important event, most of whom, it should be noted, were affiliated with Sunni School of Islam. In 1988, on the long-awaited day of the inauguration of the mosque, Kamal Osman, one of the leaders of the organized community gave these opening remarks. As you see, this cultural and religious complex was presented as the source of unity for all Muslims residing in the area, but a thorough examination reveals a different picture. Similar to the first ceremony in 1983, most of those present were Sunnis. Clearly, the Shiites did not express any identification with the new mosque nor with the nearby school, and their absence seems to express opposition to their construction. Now, why was the construction of a religious and educational communal complex so controversial? The answer lies in an ancient theological dispute and in modern Lebanese sectarianism. In the early stages of the mosque project, and as stated by Kamal Osman, there was a hope among certain circles in the community that the mosque would be shared by both Sunnis and Shiites. However, the unveiling of the name of the mosque, Omri ibn al-Khattab, was a turning point in that vision. In so doing, the Sunnis may have sought to exclude the Shiite from the mosque, since a long-standing conflict between the two schools of Islam came now to the fore. The Shia differs from the Sunnah on the profound question of the proper succession of Muhammad after his death in the 7th century. At the center of the Shiite doctrine is the principle of devotion and loyalty to Ali ibn Abu Talib and his descendants from his marriage with Fatima, the daughter of the Prophet of Muhammad. On the other side of this key of faith is the total rejection of their opponents, the most prominent being the second caliph after the death of the Prophet, the aforementioned Omar ibn al-Khattab, the driving force behind the attempts to deprive Ali of his rights. Not only does the choice of the name of the mosque raise questions, but also the name given to the school alongside it after Ali ibn Abu Talib. On one hand, it is quite possible that the name of the school is an attempt to appease the Shiites and create a religious space that will correspond with the entire community. On the other hand, this may be interpreted as an hierarchical expression that ostensibly impose on the Shiites the secondary importance of the school in relation to the mosque, linking it to the most important figure for the Shiites. From various testimonies by members of the community, we learn that the vision of the organized community as expressed by Kamal Osman had failed. For example, the vice president of the mosque, Faisal Ismail's answer to the potential feasibility of a common prayer compound was, open quote, "No way. We mind our own businesses as well as they do. These are two different religions." But while the theological disagreement were indeed unbridgeable, it was still hoped that the Lebanese could act as a common denominator to smooth things over. This hope failed as well in the face of the civil war in Lebanon. Without any doubt, the civil war was the longest and most violent conflict in Lebanon. Beyond the death toll and the extensive destruction of the country, the various estimates indicate that approximately 40% of the total population left Lebanon, some of them finding themselves on the banks of the Parana River. The long war witnessed a constant political and demographic growth of the Shiites in Lebanon. This preeminence also was reflected in patterns of migration. While during the 50s and the 60s, the Sunnis were the majority among the few dozens of Lebanese in the Triple Frontier, in the 80s, the Shiites changed the demographic picture. For example, if in 1981 the community numbered 1,000 members, during the course of the decade, the number grew to 4,000, with the pendulum leaning towards the Shiites. The issue of the mosque and the institutional fragmentation that followed it can be seen as a reflection of what was happening in Lebanon at that time. I find almost perfect match between the mosque controversy starting in 81 to its festive inauguration in 1988 in the face of the fourth stage of the Lebanese civil war between 82 and 88, in which the Sunnis and the Shiites found themselves on frequent collision path. The decision of the Sunni elite in the Triple Frontier to give the mosque the chosen name can be interpreted as a defensive measure against possible change in the Sunni character of the Muslim community and as a way of re-establishing the boundaries between the two religious sectors. The collapse of the Lebanese state during the civil war made many Lebanese retreat into their religious spheres and into the domain of influence of international leaders and patrons involved in the Lebanese turmoil. The Christians, for example, were seen as an extension of the Western Christianity and culture, while the Sunnis relied on several Muslim countries in the region headed by Saudi Arabia, Libya, Iraq, and Kuwait. Respectively, the Sunnis in the Triple Frontier relied on the aforementioned countries as well, especially in financing part of the mosque, something that could explain the growing presence of representatives of these countries in the mosque ceremony as well as in formal visits throughout the decade. But it seems that more than any other Arab Sunni country, it was the socialist Arab Republic of Libya and its leader Muammar Gaddafi who enjoyed maximum coverage and presence among Sunni Lebanese in the Triple Frontier. However, this sympathy between the two was not shared by the Shiite, especially after the August 1978 disappearance of Imam Musa Sadr, the mythological leader of the Shiites in Lebanon, after his meeting with no less than Gaddafi. This disappearance placed Gaddafi alongside Omar ibn al-Khattab in the pantheon of the most hated figures among the Lebanese Shia. So while Gaddafi was despised by the Shiites of the Triple Frontier, his legacy was venerated by their brother Sunnis. Therefore, it is not unreasonable to say that the disappearance affair also contributed to the Shiites' decision to partwise and establish their own communal institutions. And so it happened. In 1988, a few months after the Sunni mosque inauguration, the Shiite Islamic Beneficent Society was established. A few years later, the first Shiite mosque in the Triple Frontier was founded. The mosque was named after the Iranian Imam Ruhollah Khomeini. Now, why would this South American Shiite mosque would be named after an Iranian religious leader and not after Musa Sadr, the admirable leader of the Lebanese Shia? The answer lies in the waves of the Islamic Revolution that swept the Shiite community in Lebanon and its promissory slogans that replaced the battered nation-state of Lebanon. Iran's diplomats and religious missionaries have worked hard to nurture this alliance in other places around the world, including the Triple Frontier. Throughout the 80s, the Iranian presence in the Triple Frontier came into play at various points. The most interesting reference appears in a newspaper article from 1984, critically stated, "There is an ideological controversy in the Arab community. Some members have expressed sympathy and enthusiasm for the Lebanon revolution, Sunnis, and some, the Shiites, despise this tendency." End of quote. The article further states that while for the Shiites the religious inclination is to the tyranny of Ayatollah Khomeini of Iran, the Sunnis are much more liberal and flexible and even confront a frontal dispute with the stupid and meaningless theocracy of the Iranian revolution. Not my words. So, concluding, having said all that, the ideas that were raised here appear to lose their relevance if we embrace the assumption developed by two prominent scholars sitting in this room that ethnicity in Latin America is in constant dialogue with the ethno-social space surrounding it. My research is based on this approach, also by emphasizing the roles of the leaders of the community and its institution, the role that they have taken upon themselves in perpetuating inter-Lebanese tensions, while in practice, the reality was totally different. For example, During the laying of the cornerstone of the mosque ceremony in 1983, about 300 people participated out of a total of about 1,000 community members. At the inauguration of the mosque, after 5 years, while the community had grown to 4,000, the number of participants in the ceremony stood at a few hundred. These numbers raise the following question: where was everybody? One answer to this question was provided by Alex Hamoud, a very known figure in the community, who jokingly said, "Where was everybody? At work." Alongside the feelings of many interviewees, it seems to me that there was and there still is a disproportionate gap between the community leaders' perception of their own role, both Sunnis and Shiites, and to how things were actually perceived by the rank and file. For a contemporary example, out of 15 to 20,000 immigrants and their families in the Triple Frontier today, only about 5% of their children attend the 3 educational institutions of the community. The mosque shares the same faith with 80, 90 worshippers in morning and evening prayers, and on Friday no more than 500. This figure illustrates more than anything else that the discourse surrounding the establishment of the mosque and the community segmentation that followed it was shared and continues to be shared by only a small number among a large group of members, showing us eventually that there are more than 2 ways to be Lebanese in the Triple Frontier. Thank you.